the Russell Wilson era in Denver nearing an end after just 2 seasons? I mean, this has been a topic of conversation for a while, but I feel like just recently, and well, after a 3 interception performance against the Texans, it has been brought back up in Broncos, spaces and talking spheres. So let's talk about whether or not it is realistic, if it's possible, and whether or not ultimately I think it's going to happen. And that is, will this be Russell's last 5 games as a Denver Bronco? But Seth Walder, who works for ESPN, I wouldn't say stirred the pot on this, but I think he brought this topic back up to the surface again when he tweeted out, if Russell Wilson remains under contract on the 5th day of the 2024 league year, his $37 million 2025 salary becomes guaranteed. I know he's playing better this year, but I think there's a pretty good chance Denver moves on before then. So let's break down the possibility of Denver moving on from Russell Wilson at the end of this season to avoid having $37 million in 2025 money become guaranteed. Now, just looking at the raw numbers here, Russell Wilson's dead cap hits for the remainder of his contract. 2024, meaning if you don't know what dead cap hit is, it's if they cut you, they still owe you this money, and you are still going to be on the salary books for this money, meaning they don't have $85 million extra to spend elsewhere. That's tied to Russell Wilson, who's not on the roster. So with that, 2024, $85 million. 2025, basically $50 million. 2026, a very, very manageable $31.2 million, and then it really goes down from there. But Russell Wilson this season, it's been kind of tough to grade, I should say, because if you just look at the stats, producer Jack Lauder, he doesn't get to watch Broncos football every single week, and before we started filming, he's like, so what's the issue? He's got 21 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and he's completing 7% more of his passes. His passing yards is okay, 2,300, but not ideal, surely. However, I don't think the numbers tell the whole story here. One, look where Russell Wilson is ranking for some of these stats. Like passing yards per game, we're below 200, 25th. Guys, Zach Wilson is only 6 yards behind Russell Wilson. That's not good. Aiden O'Connell is averaging an extra yard over Russell Wilson. Now, touchdowns is 7th, although Denver does not have a very good red zone offense when it comes to running the ball. They have been much more reliant on passing the ball, and that's where a lot of Russell Wilson's touchdowns have come from. Now, I'm not going to discredit touchdown passes. Those are still good to have, and it's a good job by Russell Wilson. But, altogether, I don't think Russell Wilson has maybe been as good as some of the box scores have indicated. And that's what I've been preaching all year long. In fact, I've been preaching that since before the season started. If you came into this year and Russell Wilson was better than 2022, and that made you buy back in on Russ, I shouldn't say shame on you, but do a little bit of digging here. The bar was so low for 2022, of course he was going to be better in 2023. It'd be nearly impossible for him not to be better this season. But has he been so much better that he is deserving to come back for 2024 and 2025? That is the ultimate question here. And to answer it, I've got 48 million reasons to believe Wilson will be on this roster in 2024, because there is a $48 million difference in an $85 million dead cap for 2024 and a $37 million fully guaranteed salary in 2025 kicking in on the 5th day of the 2024 league year. So ultimately, even though the Waltons are in their own tier of wealth, they are richer than the 2nd and the 3rd and even the 4th NFL owners combined. This is not NFL owner money. This is a whole new universe of money that we can't even begin to grasp. So they might be okay with going 85. I thought we were having a conversation about finances, not weekly salaries. That's a drop in the bucket, sure. Go light $85 million, $89 million on fire because we want to get Russell Wilson out of town. We have no problem paying him that much money, which, by the way, would be more than double an NFL dead cap hit record, which currently belongs to Matt Ryan when he went from the Falcons to the Colts at $40.5 million. We're not talking about making a new NFL dead cap record. We're talking about doubling and then some change the previous one. So maybe I'm just a little bit naive because, sue me, I think $80+ million is a lot of money. It's probably too much money for Denver's ownership to go, we're not going to just eat $85 million and pay someone all that much money to not play for us anymore. We're talking about the Walton Penner Group. So maybe to them, $85 million is not a big deal. I don't know. I think you have to be a billionaire to truly grasp how much money that is and whether or not it's going to impact your decision making. But let me know, will Russ be the quarterback in Denver? Whether he's starting or not, will he be on this roster in 2024? Like I said, the Walton Penner Group has shown they are willing to spend money. When they come out and drop $250,000, 250 G's for a brand new field to be used. Jack, do you want to guess how many times the new field was used last season? How many games were played on a $250,000 field? 8 or 9, Jack says. Try 1. They spent $250,000 for the field to be used once. Week 18 last year. So they might view this as a whole different ballgame than how you and I would look at $85 million. But ultimately, I think Wilson being better than last year should not move the needle as to whether or not he should return in 2023 or 2024, excuse me. Being better than being the worst quarterback nearly in football last year is not a ringing endorsement to have your job security for the following season. The next 5 games are huge for Russell Wilson in Denver. I think Russell Wilson will return in 2024 because I think $85 million is just one too many million reasons to believe that the Denver Broncos are not going to cut him. But maybe to the ownership group, $85 million is nothing. Now, if you want to know what the contract finances are, let's break it down for a moment. If Denver were to release Russell Wilson before June 1st of 2024, the dead cap hits $85 million. There is no savings. There's negative savings, actually. So it wouldn't make a lot of sense to do a pre-June 1 release. However, if they release him with a post-June 1 designation, the 2024 dead cap hit is much more manageable, $35 million. Like, that's not going to sink your books entirely. 2025 is 49.6. Like, it's not like the $85 million just disappears because you do post-June 1. It's just spread out over 2 seasons. So you can either bite the bullet all at once and do a pre-June 1, or you can, soften the blow and spread it out over 2 seasons. Now, let's say that Denver decides to hold on to Russell Wilson for 2024. Well, if they wait until the following offseason, right, 2025, pre-June 1, his dead cap hit if they release him is $49.6 million. Cap savings, a little under $6 million. If they do that post-June 1 designation release in 2025, this you can get away with. $18 million in 2024, 2025, I think. 2026 dead cap hit is $31.2 million. Like, you can make do with those numbers right there for 2025 and 2026. Now, before we kind of put a bow on this conversation, I do want to highlight our awesome sponsor today, which is Prize Picks. Thanks to Prize Picks, I've had an absolute blast watching some insufferable football this year, but true football fans, we watch Thursday Night Football, even when it is the Steelers and the Patriots clashing with Mitch Trubisky and whoever's playing for New England. Is it Bailey Zappi? Oh, that's going to be tough to watch. But with Prize Picks, you can stay locked in on the games. Let me explain how. You pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you can watch the winnings roll in. So for Sunday, I'm taking the more on all 4 of these. Bryce Young's passing yards, Matthew Stafford's passing yards, Drake London's receiving yards, and Javonte Williams' rushing yards. So if you like my selections, go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first-time deposit match up to $100. You can ride with my selections, or you can make your own selections for a magnitude of sports. So go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS to get that deposit match up to $100. I put that link for everyone down in the comments and description of today's video. Now, like I was saying earlier, the next 5 games are huge for Russell Wilson because if Denver's ownership is okay with eating $85 million, if Russell Wilson does not play well over this stretch, there is fair reason to believe Russell Wilson might be gone after this season, right? If they can't eke out wins against a bad Chargers team twice, a horrible Patriots team, and a bad Chargers team, if they can't go 4-1, 3-2 in this stretch and get above 500, if there's 2 straight losing years, I mean, imagine being an owner, buy a team, first 2 years, losing. You're a loser. They don't want to be losers. When you're billionaires, you can buy wins. And if that means $85 million, they might try and buy wins by moving on from Russell Wilson. So how does that go down? Well, like I said, it would have to be a post-June 1 release in 2024, where the dead cap hit for 2024 is $35 million. The 2025 dead cap hit is $49.6 million. So it's not good. Like, you might read some articles about, like, hey, just curious, like, not looking at porn or anything, but can I look up and see if Denver can get away from Russell Wilson this year? Like, it's not going to be pretty, but at least it's not impossible, I guess. Although looking at it, like, it's still $50 million for 2025. Your ability to spend on players, $50 million. That's a big chunk of the pie going to a guy not even on your roster. To me, that just seems like too big of a number to fathom. Ultimately, I think Russ would have to really spiral for Denver to move on from him after this season. Like, if he really goes downhill fast and bad, I think Russell Wilson has shown this ownership that, sure, he's not going to be the guy that thought they were getting from Seattle. He's not going to be the guy that pushes them to the next level and gets them to the postseason or maybe wins postseason games. But he's not an absolute disaster runaway train that needs to be cut immediately. I think you could survive with Russell Wilson quarterbacking this team in 2024. It's probably going to be very similar to what we're seeing now. Of there's been some good plays. Let's not act like Russell Wilson hasn't thrown one good pass this year. He's had some nice touchdown passes. But you also have plays where Russell Wilson doesn't look at Jerry Jeudy, who could walk in for a touchdown against the Texans. And, well, that would have been the difference between winning and losing. So if Denver decides, hey, we want to move on from Russell Wilson, well, they can go one of two ways. They can either draft his replacement in this year's draft and have that guy start immediately because they cut Russell Wilson, or maybe they draft a J.J. McCarthy, a Michael Penix, although he's a little bit of an older guy. If Jaden Daniels somehow slips to them, I would be all over that pick. But maybe Denver decides, what if we get J.J. and we let him sit for a year behind Russell Wilson and kind of learn from Russ and not just be tossed into the fire week 1. My hot summer take, if you guys remember that from before the season started, is this. Denver drafts a QB between rounds 3 and 5. And Russ comes back next year, but he is like Jimmy Garoppolo 2.0, where they've got their Aiden O'Connell in Vegas. Well, Denver's going to have their own Aiden O'Connell in Denver. And after a couple of weeks, we might see a switch at the quarterback position, and Denver moves on after 2024. Instead of an $85 million dead cap hit, it's a more manageable $49.5 million dead cap hit, and the Broncos go their separate ways after 2024 with Russell Wilson. But if you were calling the shots, would you draft a quarterback in rounds 1 through 3? Denver does not have a second-round pick. That belongs to the New Orleans Saints, but they can always make a trade and move up if they really fall in love with someone. Speaking of falling in love with someone, I'm just going to put this out here now so that when Joe Milton is a Pro Bowl quarterback in a few years, I can say I told you guys so. Now, yes, he does go to my alma mater, Tennessee, so a little bit of bias here, but I'm telling you, throw on some Joe Milton highlights. He's got the strongest arm. When the combine rolls around, he's going to be the talk of the town. If you want to sound smart in February talking with your friends, talk about that quarterback in Knoxville. Joe Milton had awful wide receivers to work with at Tennessee this season. Give him an actual NFL roster around him. He can be a really special quarterback. He's not going to go in rounds 1, 2, or 3. I think he's going to go between rounds 4 and round 6, and I think he is someone definitely worth taking a flyer on. All right, that's going to do it for us on today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate those of you who take time out of their day to come hang out with us here at the channel, and we'll see you guys later.